It had been a month since I made the hardest decision of my life, and I still couldn't shake the ache in my chest. Breaking up with Mark, the man I had thought I would spend the rest of my life with, was like ripping out a piece of my soul. But it was something I had to do. I had chosen my family over him, and the aftermath felt as though I had pulled the trigger on a decision that would haunt me forever. The moment I stepped away from my father's incessant texts, I thought it would be a relief. My phone buzzed constantly, my dad, Jonathan, demanding answers, questioning why I hadn't come home yet. Every text felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I had already given up so much of my life to them. And for what? I had spent years playing the role of the dutiful daughter, helping out with the house, babysitting, sacrificing my own happiness for their convenience. They had never truly seen me. They never saw me as someone with my own hopes, my own desires. When I finally took the leap and left, I felt free at first. My therapist, Dr. Carter, had been a beacon of light in this confusing time. She was adamant that I needed to sever ties completely with my family to heal. But every time I saw my father's name on my phone screen, I couldn't help but feel like I was abandoning him, abandoning the person who had been a constant presence in my life, no matter how toxic. I kept thinking back to my foster brother, Adam. He had just had a baby, and my father's texts were filled with desperation. "We need you here, now." My father was incapable of seeing the burden he had placed on me all these years. But did I owe him this one last act of responsibility? Was it too much to ask to go back for a little while, just to help him out? Yet, deep inside, I knew the answer. I had to break free. I had to stop living for everyone else's needs and start living for myself. Even if that meant cutting ties with everything I had known. One day, when I finally couldn't stand it anymore, I responded to one of my father's texts. It was brief, emotionless. "I'm not coming back. Please stop texting me." The response was immediate, and not what I expected. "What do you mean? This isn't just about you. We've given you everything." The guilt flooded me, but I held firm. I had been telling myself I would do this for months, and I wasn't going to go back on it now. The moment I hit send, a sense of dread washed over me. But I didn't regret it. Not yet. It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness. My cousin Liam and his family were visiting for lunch, and I wanted to help out his daughter, Emily. Emily was young, only 18, but she had big dreams. She had a job interview for an engineering apprenticeship, but she didn't have the right clothes. The formal dresses she owned were meant for weddings, not business meetings. As a person who loved fashion and had a good eye for style, I thought Isabel's tailored suits could be the perfect solution. They were pristine, expensive, perfectly fitted, and stylish. Emily, with her similar build to Isabel, would look stunning in one of them. So, without asking Isabel first, I grabbed a sleek black suit and handed it over to Emily. She beamed with gratitude, and I felt proud of myself for helping her. However, when Isabel came home, her fury hit me like a ton of bricks. I was shocked by her reaction. "How could you just take my stuff without asking?" she screamed. "That suit is a professional investment. It's mine." I had never seen Isabel like this before. She was usually calm, collected, and understanding. But that day, she wasn't any of those things. She locked herself in her room for hours, refusing to speak to me. I tried to apologize, but nothing seemed to cut through her anger. Looking back, I realized that I had made a mistake. I should have asked first. But it wasn't just about the suit. Isabel had always been the one to hold everything together. The good daughter. The perfect one. Maybe, just maybe, I had crossed a line that hadn't been obvious to me at the time. I wasn't just borrowing her clothes without permission. I had, in a sense, crossed into her territory, the one place she thought no one could breach. But the guilt wasn't enough to stop me from wanting to help. Emily's career depended on it, and I couldn't let my cousin's daughter miss out because of my own family's drama. Still, as the silence lingered between Isabel and me, I began to wonder if this was just the first crack in our relationship that would eventually split us apart. Mark was everything I could have wanted in a partner, kind, thoughtful, and supportive. But there was one issue that had slowly poisoned our relationship: my family. Specifically, my parents. I loved my parents, Rosa and Javier, with all my heart. They had given everything for me, and in my culture, taking care of them as they aged was not just a choice, it was my duty. I had been financially supporting them for years, helping with their mortgage and bills, even though I had my own life to manage. My parents were retired now, and they struggled with making ends meet. But I was there for them. It was a no-brainer. Mark, however, couldn't understand this. To him, it was unfair. His parents were self-sufficient, and he believed that I should stop supporting mine so we could save for our future together. The tension between us had grown, and that night, as we talked about marriage, everything exploded. "I need you to choose," he said, his voice harsh. "Them or me. You can't keep doing this." I felt my heart shatter. How could he not understand? How could he ask me to abandon my parents, to turn my back on the people who had sacrificed everything for me? The weight of the decision was crushing. But in the end, I couldn't choose Mark. I couldn't turn my back on the family who had always been there for me. So, I broke up with him. The moment the words left my lips, I knew I had made the right choice. But at what cost? I cried for days. I missed Mark terribly. But as I focused on my family and my own healing, I realized I had made the only choice I could. Yet, a nagging question still lingered in my mind: would I ever truly be happy living in the shadow of my family's needs? One night, as I sat in my apartment, trying to focus on my new job and moving forward with my life, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my father. I had ignored him for weeks, but this time, I opened it. It was short: "I'm sorry." The words hit me like a wave, knocking the breath out of me. Was this an apology? Was my father actually trying to acknowledge what he had done? I didn't know how to respond. It had been so long, and everything had changed. But in that moment, I realized something: I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, toward building a future for myself, without the weight of their expectations dragging me down. But could I ever really leave them behind? The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about that message from my father. "I'm sorry." It was the first time in years that he'd even attempted to acknowledge the strain he'd placed on me, and my heart wavered. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that an apology, no matter how heartfelt, couldn't undo the years of emotional neglect and control. I had spent too long putting their needs above my own. I had spent too long being the person who was always there to help, to fix, to sacrifice. My therapist, Dr. Carter, had warned me that I might feel this way. That the love and guilt would pull at me. But she also reminded me that healing wasn't about undoing the past, it was about building a future. And right now, I needed to focus on mine. I couldn't keep carrying the burden of my family's expectations on my back. It wasn't about rejecting them, it was about taking back the power to choose my own path. And so, I made the decision. I couldn't go back to them. Not yet, and maybe not ever. That evening, as I sat down to process my feelings, my phone rang. The screen flashed my mother's name, Rosa. My stomach twisted. I hadn't heard from her in weeks, not since I had broken up with Mark. Was this it? Was she finally calling to ask why I had left them behind? Was it another demand to come home, to fix things for them? I hesitated for a long moment, my heart racing. But I knew that I couldn't avoid this call forever. I answer, "Hello?" My voice was steady, even though my insides churned. There was a long pause on the other end before my mother's voice cracked through the silence. "Mija. I need to tell you something." The tone in her voice was enough to make my heart stop. It wasn't the angry, disappointed voice I had become so accustomed to. It wasn't the voice of someone who demanded answers or assistance. It was the voice of someone who was truly broken. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We never meant to make you feel like this." The words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized just how much I needed to hear those words, but now that they were here, I wasn't sure how to process them. "Mom." I breathed, but I didn't know what else to say. "I know you've been carrying the weight of everything for so long. Your father and we should have never expected so much from you. I know you have your own life, and you need to live it. We've been selfish, and I'm sorry." The tears came then, without warning. The walls I had built around myself began to crumble. This was what I had needed to hear all along. This was what I had been longing for. But as much as I felt that tug in my chest to return, to heal the rift that had formed between us, I knew it wasn't the right time. Not yet. "I've been doing a lot of thinking too, Mom," I said, my voice steadying with each word. "I'm not coming back right now. I need to focus on myself. I need to find my own way before I can be their foe." She was silent for a long moment, and I held my breath, unsure of how she would react. But then I heard a soft sigh. "I understand. I really do." Just know that we love you, and we will always be here when you're ready." And that was it. The conversation ended with those simple, painful words. I felt a heavy weight lift off my shoulders, but I also knew that I was walking away from something significant. My family's expectations, the life I once knew, and the comforting lie that I could always make everything better, all of it had to stay behind. The days after my conversation with my mother were strange. I felt both liberated and conflicted. But life moved on, and I continued with my plans. I dove into my job, the one I had worked so hard to secure. It was a new chapter in my life, one that was just mine. Still, there was the matter of Isabel. The tension between us had only grown since I'd taken her suit without permission. Her silence was deafening, and every time we were in the same room, I could feel the distance between us. It wasn't until I received an unexpected message from her one evening that I realized how deep the rift had become. "Can we talk?" It was brief, but it was a start. I agreed, and we met up at a nearby cafe. When Isabel sat down across from me, she was quiet, her gaze distant. I could tell she was struggling with something, but I had no idea how much. "You've really hurt me, you know?" she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "I don't know why you didn't just ask for permission to borrow the suit. I didn't think we needed to have that conversation, but I guess I was wrong." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. I hadn't realized how much that moment had affected her until now. "I know I made a mistake," I said, my voice thick with guilt. "I should have asked. But the thing is, it wasn't just about the suit. I was trying to help Emily. I saw the way you and Mom always put everyone else first, and I thought I was doing the same thing. I thought it was a small thing. But I see now that it wasn't." Isabel looked at me for a long time, and I could tell she was processing everything. "I get that you want to help," she said after a pause. "But you have to understand that there are boundaries. I don't think you respect mine." And then it hit me, the truth that I had been avoiding. Isabel had always been the perfect daughter, the one who followed all the rules and expected the same from everyone around her. I had crossed a boundary that went far beyond clothes. I had challenged her idea of control, and it had shaken her in a way I hadn't anticipated. "I respect your boundaries," I said softly. "I really do. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you, Isabel. But I've been living in the shadow of everyone else for too long. I don't know how to make it right, but I don't want to lose you either." For a long while, she didn't say anything. But when she finally spoke, there was a vulnerability in her voice that I hadn't heard before. "I don't want to lose you either. But we need to figure out how to be honest with each other. No more secrets. No more crossing lines." That was the beginning of healing. Slowly, we began to rebuild. The road wasn't easy, but we started to communicate. Isabel and I, despite our differences, found a way back to each other. It wasn't about perfection anymore. It was about honesty, about being real with one another. The path I had taken was long and uncertain, filled with moments of doubt, pain, and regret. But it was also a path to self-discovery, to embracing my own identity beyond the labels my family had placed on me. It wasn't easy to leave Mark, to cut ties with my family, to take ownership of my life. But I had done it. And in the end, it was worth it. I wasn't just building a future, I was building my own future. One where I could finally breathe without the suffocating weight of expectation. Where I could love and care for myself first. Where I could choose my path without looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone else's approval. I wasn't the perfect daughter anymore. But I was the woman I needed to be. And as I moved forward, I knew that no matter how dark the road might get, I would always be ready to face it. Because for the first time, I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me. The choice I made had changed everything. And now, everything was mine to shape. If you enjoyed this thrilling journey, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on the latest content. Share this story with your friends, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay tuned for more suspenseful adventures.